Good morning, fellow humans. Good morning. Today is Saturday, November 8th, 2025. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning. This month is flying by so fast. In a couple weeks, it's going to be, in a couple weeks, it's going to be Thanksgiving. We've got a lot of things on our hit parade. First, a shameless shout out. Pancake breakfast at the senior center. Not sure why that's not focusing. On Saturday, November 15th. We are doing in conjunction with Turning Point USA. Right. Okay. Groovy, baby. Groovy. So that's good. Then the following Wednesday is the turkey luncheon for the homeless, which we must promote. And then the following week is Thanksgiving. Righto. So, what can we say about that? I don't know. But busy day. Also, there's a Jesuit in town doing a retreat over at the Catholic Church, which I will be going to. Let's see, what else? Maybe a couple big things happening today. Moving forward, clawing our way forward, going for that 6 inches. Fighting for the 6 inches in front of us, according to any given Sunday. Okay, so here we are. Day 6 in week 1 of our neuroscience-oriented approach to success. It's a heavy book, a lot of ink on these pages. Lots of ink. So day 6 in week 1. So week 1 is our overview and orientation. And very simply, our goal is to help people answer 2 questions from a neuroscience perspective. Who am I? Why do I behave the way I do? Why do we ask? Why is that our goal? Because if you have valid answers to those 2 questions, you have the ability to dial in. You have to get a dial. Note to self, get a dial. Dial in. Let's see, could this be my dial? You need to dial in who you need to be right now. So you can always be your best self from a neuroscience perspective. That's it. That's our goal. And if we can do that, and we have this belief, this fundamental belief, that we have a soul that continues after death. We have an eternal soul. If that's the direction we're going, if that's the trajectory we're on, a 60-degree angle, we will get to where we actually want to be. That's it. And so the purpose of the podcast is to create a daily routine and then repeat it so it becomes unconscious behavior, and then apply that to everything else we do. Try to get as much routine stuff as we can into unconscious behavior so that we can free up our mind to be doing things consciously. So we would truly be multitasking. I'm doing this non-consciously while I'm consciously doing that. Where most people spend most of their time daydreaming. Right. We want to spend most of our time doing meaningful things unconsciously so that consciously we can be giving more purpose to our life, service to others. Okay, so that's the intro. Today's themo, memo, suffering. How do you live life at a time when you are suffering? Right. Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl addresses that. First, let's ask, what are some advice from an 80-year-old? Always accept an outstretched hand. Okay. Always. That means there's no exceptions. Well, if we think about the minute-to-minute, second-to-second thing of life, that's really hard. If we have the perspective of eternity, and you say, well, how long is having humility, accepting an outstretched hand, how long is that action compared to eternity? Well, if eternity is 13.8 billion years, if we just say that's eternity, and we say a human life is 100 years, and a human life compared to 13.87 billion years, 100 compared to 13.8 billion would be like the hair on your head, the width of a hair on your head compared to almost an 8-mile walk. So now if you take accepting an outstretched hand compared to 100 years, that's nothing. So it's no big deal. Just accept the outstretched hand. Don't then push the replay button of all of the angst. Where'd I go? Whoa. All of the angst and disappointment and frustration. Just move forward. Okay. Seth Godin. What does Seth Godin have to tell us today? Perhaps we have what we need. If the answer is over there, then we're off the hook. If it comes from the future, comes from away, comes from someone else, then our job is to simply wait for it to arrive. But it could be that your organization already has all the resources it needs to change the dynamic in the marketplace. It could be that your keyboard has all the letters needed to allow you to type the book you have inside you, and the interactions we're struggling with, the fears inside us. But so is the bravery and generosity we need to move forward. The solution isn't coming. The solution is already here. Solar and wind are already cheaper than the alternatives. We have the tech in hand to make a serious dent in our climate problems. Medicine is waiting on some silver bullet magic cures. But in the meantime, doctors have developed the expertise and the tools to alleviate the suffering of billions. Off-grid energy for 2 billion people is a solved problem waiting for distribution and implementation. In a rapidly evolving world, hope is a natural response when things are always getting better, getting worse. Acting like we have what we need already, though, gives us the chance to take action right here and right now. Repeat that. Acting like we have what we need already, though, gives us the chance to take action right here and right now. Okay, take the orientation. We already have what we need. We're not waiting for the next thing. It could be kind of a G.school type of thing. You already have what you need. In other words, for some reason, most people here in Courant that go to the non-denominational churches and even the denominational churches that I experience have an attitude of God has a plan for me. I'm waiting for God to reveal his plan. If we apply the Seth Godin to it, perhaps we have what we need. If we take an orientation that God is just waiting for me to execute. So it's that thing of the guys in a town that has floods. Floods are coming. They give the notice out to the people, hey, flood warnings, please evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. Your guy says, no, I'm waiting for God. And then they come up higher. They send a car patrol. You need to evacuate. I'm waiting for God. The water's rising higher. They send a canoe, a boat, waiting for God. He's up on his roof now because the water's so high. A helicopter comes and says, I'm waiting for God to save me. He dies. He gets to heaven. USOB, God, I was waiting for you and you never showed up. God says, what do you mean? I gave a notice. I sent a boat. I sent a... Well, let's apply that to the thing. God saying, I gave you this body that you have. I gave you the brain that you have. I gave you the emotions that you have. I gave you everything you need, and you still didn't do it. Perhaps those people are thinking, God needs to do the work. In fact, their retort is, all glory to God. I only did what God wanted me to do. Okay, that's good for being humble. But maybe we have it upside down. Maybe God is waiting for us instead of us waiting for God. Instead of us praying, please, God, show me the way. Of having the attitude of, please, God, give me the courage to do what I know I need to do. Give me courage, give me wisdom, not lead me, Lord. Okay, well, and along those lines, for example, Reset Church today. I think at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I don't know, 10 o'clock, everyone is gathered. We're going to pray for God to tell us what to do. Just going to go pray. Whereas over at the Catholic Church, they're having a retreat with the Jesuit. They're talking about the Gospel of Matthew. And the Seventh-day Adventist Church is doing their worship service. So, how do we move forward? Okay, let's go back to our theme of today. Meaning in the time of suffering. So, Viktor Frankl, day 2. This is from the movie The Gray. Very dark movie in terms of emotionally just pulls you down, 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 down as the wolves are chasing, pursuing, and picking off the survivors one by one. And there's a parallel with what Viktor Frankl experienced in the camps we talked about yesterday. Some people live, some people die. And this is it's a very good movie, but I watched it once. I can't watch it more than that. It's just too soul crushing for somebody who's kind of a hypochondriac. Anywho, it's a story of a guy who had nothing to live for. He hated his job. His wife was dead. He's thinking about killing himself. In fact, was going to kill himself, but something and you put it off, but then the plane crashes and the survivors in like the Arctic wilderness, the survivors have to try to walk someplace. And unfortunately, they come across a den of wolves who see them as food and start pursuing them, picking them off one by one. And you have the different stories of the different people that match the Viktor Frankl thing. And ultimately, the only guy left is Liam Neeson, the guy who had nothing to live for. And the question is, when you have nothing to live for, what is the thing that keeps you going? For Viktor Frankl, it was being in a concentration camp where there is no expectation of getting out alive. In fact, that's what you see. That's the daily thing. Somebody's dying every day. People are being killed every day. Death is a constant. In fact, it's part of the system. So Viktor Frankl says, when we are in times of suffering and there's no expectation that the situation is going to change. In other words, I'm in the Arctic wilderness. I'm the last guy. Everyone else has gotten eaten by the wolves. I'm in a concentration camp. There's no expectation of getting out alive. When we're faced with the situation, a bad situation, and the situation is not going to change, Viktor Frankl points out to something, an emotional thing that is unique to humans. And it could be one of the gifts of God, the uniquely human attribute of being able to find meaning in times that there is no meaning. And if we can't change the circumstances, we're forced to change ourselves. And at that point, we have the opportunity to rise up to the highest possible version of ourselves. And in this case, in the movie case, it was instead of running from the wolf that was chasing him, decided to fight the wolf and to prepare the best way possible to fight the wolf. Taping a knife onto his hands and getting these little alcohol bottles and taping and breaking fingers so that he had cutting edges to match the wolf's fangs and teeth and strength. So when we can't change our circumstances, we're forced to change ourselves. And at that point, we can change ourselves to the highest version of who we are. Sort of like me attacking the gray man that was in the corner of my room the last week or a couple weeks ago. Wait, what? Disregard, we'll take that out. We'll take that out in editing. Okay. All right. So, finding meaning in a time of suffering. You have terminal cancer. When you accept the situation, when we can't change the situation, we're forced to change ourselves. And we get to become the best version of who we are at that point in time. That's it. Boom, bang, bonk. So, or is it bonk? And with that, we will say and cut.